It is 6:30 p.m. and I call this meeting to order. Please stand and we will recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Winona City Council. Votes will be conducted by a voice call rather than roll call unless requested by a council member. This evening, I have a couple things to go through. First, we'll start with Fire Captain Sean Koner, who is retiring. Fire Captain Sean Koner retired on January 31st, 2022, after 23 years of service with the Winona Fire Department. He started as an ambitious part-time firefighter on December 1st, 1998, and achieved his paramedic certification in 2001. He was promoted to full-time status in April of 2002 and promoted to fire captain in March of 2015. Sean has always shown a continual thirst for knowledge. After starting his full-time career with the fire department, he earned an associate's degree in intensive care paramedicine and a bachelor's degree in business administration. In addition, he took training and set in several specialty areas of fire service, including high angle rescue and wildland urban interface. As a paramedic, Sean had a unique ability and skill to communicate with patients under his care in stressful and anxiety-filled situations. His empathy and care for this community was obvious, and he was a shining example for others in the department. As a fire captain, Sean was responsible for day-to-day training of personnel on his crew and maintenance of the firehouse and apparatus. He was also designated with the department-wide responsibility of fire hose and nozzle maintenance, repair, and replacement scheduling. He displayed a deep understanding of tactics, tools, building construction, and equipment, and was the go-to resource in these areas. He showed exceptional leadership in the areas of listening and communication by bringing forward ideas from his crew, fellow coworkers, and citizens, and sharing his knowledge and skills. Sean gave back to the community and the fire department in many ways throughout his career and was instrumental in the formation of the Winona Fire Department Honor Guard. From the entire Winona community, we congratulate Fire Captain Sean Koner on his retirement from service. Not only will his years of experience and knowledge be missed, but also his dedication and professionalism. Please join me in wishing him a long, healthy, and happy retirement. Next, a date has been set by council to interview Chad Ubel for the position of city manager. The council will interview Mr. Ubel on Thursday, February 17th, 2022 at 2 p.m. right here in council chambers. This session will be open to the public. Lastly, this evening, under my comments, we're going to get a comp plan update from city planner Carlos Espinoza.
Thank you, Mayor. Evening, council members. This evening, I have a brief presentation update on our comprehensive plan project that we've been working on for about the past 3 to 4 months here. As you know, the comprehensive plan update that we're working on right now is to replace the existing 2007 comprehensive plan. The new comp plan would serve as a roadmap for the city's future growth and development for the next 10 to 15 years. Staff, along with HKGI, which is a planning consultant out of the Twin Cities, and Engage Winona, as well as a 12-member steering committee, have been working on the project since fall of last year, as I mentioned. The project timeline is to continue working on the comprehensive plan update, wrapping up in early to mid 2023. Phase 1 of our comprehensive plan project is complete, and that phase included 2 main specific things that we took a look at. First was baseline data collection, information on the current state of the city. And then we also conducted our initial phase of public engagement. In sum, the baseline data shows a number of different things, but to highlight a dip in population, which is about negative 1,600 since 2010. However, we think this is likely impacted by the data collection date, which was April 1st of 2020. That's when the first wave of COVID hit at that point in time. So we're working on adjusting the population data and population growth, expected growth into the next 10 to 20 years here. However, once it is adjusted, we do anticipate incremental growth in population and households through 2045, adding approximately 1,000 people and about 400 households to the city. That's based off of average growth in Winona since 1950, according to the census. So it's consistent with the growth that we've seen for the past 70 years here, essentially. But again, we are taking a look at the data and we'll make adjustments as we proceed with the project. In terms of public engagement, we have been working with Engage Winona. They've done a wonderful job reaching out to over 2,000 people and receiving over 5,700 unique comments with a good cross-section of representation from the city. The cross-section of representation is detailed in the full report by Engage Winona, which is available on our website. In addition to that, the raw data that was collected is also available. And staff, in addition to HKGI, did review the raw data and feel that the report is consistent with the raw data that was received from each one of the engagement events. If you take a look at the raw data, there's a lot of great, outstanding, tremendously thoughtful comments that came from everybody who participated. So for those who are tuning in tonight, I just want to say thank you to everybody who has participated thus far. And if you take a look at the data, there's actually some gems in there, including one person whose favorite place in Winona is a grandma's house. Another person whose favorite place in Winona is his recliner. And another person who appreciates the small town feel of Winona because her son calls the radio station every day and everybody there knows his name as a result. So there's some gems in there and, worth a look at. So. The engagement consisted of surveys, small group interviews, pop-up events, online and call-in options, as well as other outreach. And again, that outreach will continue throughout the rest of 2022. Phase 1 resulted in the identification of 9 top values. So what do you value most about being in Winona at the present? Those top values are listed on the screen, everything from people to environment, activities, livability, small town feel, recreation, economy, downtown, education, for those 9 top values. And we worked with the steering committee as well as Engage Winona and staff to boil that down to 4 core values that are on the draft values and vision statement in front of you. Those 4 core values being livability and well-being, environment and recreation, entrepreneurship and economy, and learning and the arts. In addition to what current residents currently value about the city of Winona, Engage Winona also asked about dreams for Winona in 2045. And the responses to that question, what you envision Winona being in 2045, in addition to the values, tied into the vision statement that you see in front of you. The vision statement is part of that vision and values document as well. And I'll just go ahead and read it. In 2045, Winona is a vibrant, welcoming river city where community activities strengthen our connections with each other. Our neighbors, our neighborhoods, historic downtown, riverfront, industrial, and commercial areas are thriving, and our beautiful recreation spaces are accessible to all. Public input on the draft vision and values will be obtained via survey beginning tomorrow. So this is a draft vision as well as the draft values that you have in front of you tonight. The Planning Commission will review in about another week here, and we'll bring it back for discussion at a pre-council on February 22nd. So what we're doing is asking the public to comment on the draft vision and values, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks once we do receive that information. The engagement also resulted in the identification of 2 additional comprehensive plan topics. So 2 additional topics to take a look at in addition to the 10 that were already approved. The first being community services and the second downtown and riverfront. In terms of community service, that would include things like recreation, lifelong learning, physical and mental health, as well as youth and senior activities. In terms of downtown and riverfront, people really like the progress that they've seen over the past few years here, and they want to see more of it, not just in downtown, but along the whole riverfront as well. So those 2 topics, as I mentioned, will be added to the 10 topics that were previously approved by council for inclusion in the comprehensive plan. Next steps, again, following public comment, planning commission review, we'll bring the draft values and visions back for council review at a pre-council meeting in a couple of weeks here. The comprehensive plan steering committee will then give final review on February 24th. And then we anticipate returning to council in March to seek approval of the draft vision and values. The subcommittees that are part of the comprehensive plan working on each one of those topics would then use that draft vision and values in their work from March through August of this year, with the first draft of the plan anticipated for fall 2022. So you can see that there's a lot of checks, a lot of back and forth, giving as much input as possible. And that's what we're really trying to do with this process here. Again, the vision and values are in a draft form and they can change as we move through the process. So I can answer questions tonight. Otherwise, I will be back in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. We also have Marcia Ratliff here from Engage Winona, if you have questions for her as well. Any questions at all? Don't think so. All righty. Thank you, Carlos. Thanks, Marcia, for all your work, and thank you to your team. Okay, city manager comments.
Mayor and council, none tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Reminder that the public is not allowed to speak during these agenda items unless you have a request before the council, and I have given you permission to speak. We will now take roll call.
Mayor Scott Sherman,
Here.
Councilman Young,
Here.
Moeller, Alexander,
Here.
Iden,
Here.
Wojciechowski,
Here.
Rapinski.
Here.
Under the petitions, requests, and communications, item 3.1 is the Prairie Island Campground Front Porch Management Report. And Jamie Shell is here to make that report.
And Ann Conway. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's been a minute. 2020 gave us a year off from this reporting, and we have some new faces on the council, so welcome. And I think we got a lot of good news to report from Prairie Island Campground. In our year-end report, we kind of we've been working a little bit also on just kind of establishing our mission, front porch management, and how we approach managing the campground. And our mission statement, front porch management's mission is to attract, engage, and retain guests through providing an exceptional camping experience coupled with opportunities for outdoor recreation within the greater Prairie Island Park and Mississippi River Basin, with hopes of inspiring community engagement through the arts, natural resource conservation, and active, healthy living. That's kind of our guide as we do, I guess, what we're doing out of Prairie Island these days. So we're just going to get right into the sales numbers for last year. You'll notice comparative numbers are from 2018, and really 2018 was the most normal year we have to go off of. It was, as far as business, Mother Nature cooperated more so that year. We were still like deer caught in the headlights at that time, our first year, but it was a pretty successful year as far as the city was concerned from historical numbers prior to that. So we're going to use 2018 to compare this year to. You'll see in that year, it was budgeted for $185,000 to go to the city of Winona from Prairie Island, and we succeeded that by $12,389 in 2018. If you look at 2021, you can see how busy we were. 323,900, nearly 324,000 in total site sales, campground site sales, which leads to $230,207 going to the city out of that, which was 45,000 more than what was budgeted for coming out of Prairie Island. That's a pretty significant amount of extra money this year. People were excited to get out camping post-COVID. And I certainly think that's a big part of it, but I also think the renovations that happened in 2020 that were done out there significantly improved the campground and the experience for the guests. So it's coupled with that. I mean, you can see that number all the way, the two numbers all the way to the right, the number of reservations short-term. We removed those long-term seasonal numbers out of that just to see, because those are static for the most part. So then the people coming, there was 353 more reservations that we had come, which equated to 1,982 more nights stayed in the campground, which is pretty significant. RevPAR is a hospitality industry number. It's revenue per available room for us at sites, but that's a number that when you're in the hospitality housing, if that number's growing and you're doing well, it's a good gauge of how things are going from a business standpoint. And of course, occupancy should be going up as well. So it's a pretty exciting year. There's a lot of work and we were very busy, but it was a lot of great feedback from people. So we're excited about that. This next slide this comes directly out of our reservation system. This is what's called a PACE report. It's something you watch to gauge how your business is looking as your reservations start coming in. So we open reservations January 1st. These numbers, the numbers that were there last year in this PACE report, were blowing away other years. This year is baffling me. It's blowing away last year, which I thought was a marker year. So right now we're on just a phenomenal pace. These numbers can adjust as the year goes on. It might just people being like, yep, for sure, we're going to Prairie Island this year. Let's get and book that stay early. But for the most part, it looks promising moving forward. So if Mother Nature cooperates, hopefully we're up for another really, really good year out there. So what's new out there? We kind of want to let you know what we've been up to and what we've been doing. So of course, the renovations, which we'll talk about in a little while, but that continuous online presence in this day and age is important. That's, social media, all those other things. You got to stay on that. The 2 tiny houses that we use as like short-term cabin stay rentals are certainly new. Programming, bringing a lot more arts, environmental education into our family programmings on the weekends is proving to be really popular. Community partnerships, improved river access. You'll see that in some of these next slides. That access to the river is something that we're really wanting to continue to do, and that renovation really helped with that. So in a fresh new brand, we put out some so you can see some of the different logos we're using for different things happening out there, and those are being really well received. We invested in the little old store out there last year, just really kind of trying to make it look way more inviting for folks to come in. So that's feels a lot better when you walk into it, but it's still an little old building. It takes a lot to make it look real nice in there. And then you can see our community fire pit. You catch the edge of it in our stage, and that's like a community food garden. So that's just kind of the hub. That's what people see when they come in, and the feeling they get is just really important. That first impression and that engagement area we have around the store. So to explain a little bit of the renovations that we did, that bottom map is the old map of when we first took over. The significant area that's changed is really right at the core of the campground along the river. You can see how it looks very different. You see those little blue ponds, those are just retention ponds for water runoff situations, which the way the roads, the parking lots, everything fed to the center of that campground. And all that water went straight down the boat ramp, eroded it, wrecked it, washed the beach away, did all that. So all that excavation work we did was to reshape all that, manage all that water, save our riverfront, which is certainly an erosion issue in general, just from flooding. So a lot has been done to manage a lot of water, but it also got rid of that road that went all the way along the riverfront. It cut across the top of the beach. So your beach, our water access was completely cut off by a road a driving road. So the engagement connection to the river, it didn't feel safe. You're standing at the edge, there's cars going by you, you're trying to fish, you're trying to watch your kids at the beach, all of that. So removing that road, pulling it back, coming inland before it goes back out on the far end, really changed this riverfront significantly. And people are really excited about it. So this is more of a Google Earth image. So now you can see the size of that beach, how that road is pulled inland, goes away. So that's all green space. That's all recreation space all the way down by the river there. The boat launch is brand new that you can see. And so it's just created this way more river connected experience for our guests. Just some images of that zone. So you get a feel right where those boulders are in the top left, that used to be a road. And where those hammock sites are with those triangular sunshades, that was a road. We've also created those hammock sites are the least expensive sites in the campground. You walk into them, they provide access to folks that are on bikes that just want to walk in, but they're pristine, beautiful sites. And it's nice to have that access piece that isn't necessarily more expensive. You got to work a little bit, you got to walk out to them, but they're really appreciated. Some folks will rent them just to come to the beach for the day as well, and hammock and hang out. And so it's a nice experience that way. This was a nearly 3-inch rain event in an hour or hour and a half. And that's what the retention ponds did that day. Those ponds are drained back down to where they're gone in basically 3 days. The water has seeped back in and out of there right now, which is really wonderful. It holds it back, but yet it lets it drain back through the ground and be gone, and it's not running down our boat launch. When that gets that full, there's an overflow that's designed for the water to go down and not erode the riverfront. So it's they worked. It was kind of nice to get this rain and be like, all right, and walk around and look. It was pretty wonderful. They're also planted with native plants to the area, so it actually creates these little gardens when they're not full of water. And then because the water doesn't stay there, those plants do fine there as well. So it's been a nice addition. Our online system, we went in last year and we hired somebody to photograph every single site in the campground. That way on this system, people look at the site, they see it from a couple angles, they get a map view. Has really helped people book sites, just feel comfortable and know what they're get. So people are definitely excited about that. Social media presence, I mean, there's things we've put out that'll have 2,500, 3,000 views. So we're definitely getting engagement of folks, for sure. We have a whole series of photo gallery now that's nice photos, professionally done, showing families, showing people doing activities. It's just, it really helps people go, yeah, that's the kind of campground I want to be at. Anna's going to step in and talk to you a little more here.
All right. So yes, it's been a couple of years of investment. So this year people are asking, Jamie, what are you up to this winter? And he's like, well, I'm not building a tiny house. So two big improvement that we brought is having cabins available for folks who don't have the equipment to go camping, but they want to come into the space and experience being in the backwaters of the Mississippi. So Jamie, in collaboration with the Minnesota State College Southeast Construction Technologies program, built 2 tiny houses that have become anchors for larger campground gatherings. Folks that will come, and the folks that don't have the camper can rent the tiny house, and folks that do have campers and tents can rent other sites. So they become anchors. They also have become destinations, inviting new user groups into the space, people coming into Prairie Island that never would have imagined coming had this opportunity not been available. They can just show up, and there's kayaks and bikes for them to use. And yeah, on our Airbnb site, in one month, we could get 1,500 to 2,000 clicks for folks looking for a unique experience within the state of Minnesota, which is pretty interesting. There was also an article that was put out by Airbnb featuring the 9 tiny house stays in Minnesota. And we were, I think, number 4, number 5, and I think that might contribute significantly to that. So also we feature local artists and local businesses in the tiny houses. We really invite the guests to come into the community to go to restaurants and go to different shops in town, and they definitely respond. And we hear back from different business owners like, oh yeah, your guests have come to patronize our businesses. So that's also a great thing. Let's see, okay. So yeah, the Prairie Island Community Garden is just an ongoing zone of community engagement. We have folks that come in as residents to garden, but also campers, and they share the produce. So when people come in to check in and they're like, whoa, you really have some tomatoes? We could just grab some. Yeah, just go ahead and grab some tomatoes and use them in your food this evening. But that space engages people to come in and experience the music, and to we have food trucks, and again, supporting local artists, but also inviting children and families to come in and learn about the surrounding environment. So again, we've got a Saturday morning program called Swamp Oak Society. And these are some photos of us taking kids out to learn about the environment, to be active, to move throughout the space, but also the opportunity to be creative, and to create things based on what they may have gathered or learned within the day. So topics focusing on birds and bugs and plants and water. And so I'm just excited to continue to develop that programming. In some of our events at the community garden, you see we've, again, showing some local artists, some hot sauce being sold, food trucks. We partnered with the boathouse there, and just bands and also musicians performing for children. So there's a lot happening every weekend. It definitely keeps me on our toes. There's some more of the going out and walking through the trails across the road, touching, feeling those trees. And then another addition is a patio down by the river where we've invited people to come and do yoga. But again, people are just discovering the bike trail to Trempealeau, the flyway trail. And so it's fun to see people actually going out and taking advantage of that resource and coming back and staying in the campground. All right, so now Jamie will talk about our partnerships.
I know when we originally proposed to the city, a big part of that was partnerships. You know, we said we promised that we would be making very strong partnerships, and I think that's really has been one of the biggest, most important things that have made this successful, is partnering with all these different groups in town. And this was just stuff from last year. We've got others that we've done years before, but you know, the city of Winona, of course, is a partner in this, and all those departments have been just amazing to work with. And I really want to thank everybody here at City Hall for all the support that we've had with ideas and getting things done, and being quick to come out and help us with a piece of equipment or, you know, all of those things. It's really important to us. We really appreciate it. And then, of course, the festivals that we work with, and yeah, folks. So we just really appreciate the partnership piece. Hopes for the future. So at the top here on the left, you see 2019. That was that building that we put a bunch of time into this year to make it look really nice. It's been there a long time, and it's a little block building on a slab on grade foundation, and the floor is cracked, and there's no plumbing in it. And, you know, you make do, but there's certainly, I think, better things out there. The building to the right is just a rendering that I created in a project that we've been talking about, and that hopefully you will all start hearing more and more about. I know there's been talk like Prairie Island needs this facility and it's been discussed in the budget plans. I know we've been talking to Lucy. There's maybe some grant options out there to help us fund this as well. But I really think it would be a really significant change to that space at Prairie Island if we could come up with a new facility. That'd be a welcoming center at the park. It would be a store facility, a check-in facility, a place to do all kinds of activities that we have out there. We could have plumbing, of course. Serve some small food, soft serve ice cream would, in the middle of summer is a pretty pleasant thing, but all those things aren't possible in what we have at Prairie Island right now. There just isn't. Department of Health wouldn't allow it. Additionally, having a building above floodplain is so significant for us to make investment in a building that we know floods, every 5 to for sure 10 years. Is just a hard thing to do. And then the effort to move out of the way of it. And then have to do it all over again is a really difficult thing. So down to the left, that map is basically I'm showing surfaces and things that in Campground are new. The kind of dark marker looking lines are existing roads that are tar and pea gravel about an inch thick. It's just from years of laying down tar, spreading pea gravel, kind of making faux asphalt. They do at some point, certainly there's some areas that are getting bad that really need to be redone, but the yellow is gravel. Those are things we created in the renovation. And ideally they need to be asphalted as well. So there's a cost with that. I know at one point we looked at the parking lot and that roundabout loop, and you're talking $50-some thousand to do that type of work, right? But the campground also makes money for the city. So hopefully we can solve some of those things. The building, if you look down below, the red square is our existing shower house. That building's there, it's above floodplain. It has plumbing, it's connected to a drain field across the road. The concept that we're initially looking at would be to build that building connected to that in front of it. Those bathrooms would stay there, they would be used, they'd still be the bathhouse and the shower house. But the drainage plumbing system, it would all potentially connect together. So it would be out of the floodplain. And it's also got a really nice presence that's right up by the road as you enter. So I think there has to be some feasibility work done from architects and to make sure that that's something we can do. But I'm hopeful that it could be. So hopefully you'll be hearing more about a project like that soon. To the right of that, you see that's somebody who's doing burnouts in the Kiwanis Park. That is, I would almost dare to say, a daily occurrence out there. And we've worked really hard over the last 4 or 5 years to create a space at Prairie Island that is enjoyable for families, that's respectful, it's safe, it's all these things. 10 o'clock comes, people now are like, I cannot believe how quiet your campground is at 10. People aren't necessarily sleeping, they're just respectful. And then somebody pulls into that parking lot and does 50 miles, 60 miles an hour through it, does burnouts, drives through the grass, drives up the levee and burns out of there at 80, 100 miles an hour down the road. And I'm not kidding when I say 80 to 100 miles an hour in a loud vehicle that disrupts the entire space. And it's hard because it's out at the end of the road. Law enforcement's in town doing the work that they do. By the time they're able to get out there, then usually nobody's there anymore. We've been successful once at making a call and getting somebody get a citation that I know of. But for that park to be abused like that, for a park that's used significantly, it's unfortunate. In addition, during the day, that parking lot, that space is not designed to slow anybody down. It's a wide open space. You come in, nothing diverts you, nothing makes you go slow in any way. And people are going through that part. I'm not, and Chad's heard this from me before as well, many times, but you know, I've seen people with little kids in their cars go in, do a burnout and drive out of there going 50 miles an hour in the middle of the day with families, people around, recreators. I've seen gravel sprayed all over cars. Like it's something that I really think as a city that needs to be addressed. It really honestly does. And it's through design. And it's through the sign at the entrance says it closes at 10 p.m. And I promise you, it's not closed at 10 p.m. to most people in their mind. So, so those are a couple of things. These are really important, really significant things that I think for that park in general, as much as the work we've done is it to be a destination and a place for people to come, that these are really important things that we could do moving forward. And I hope we can get that done. So. Some feedback from customers. These are just responses that we have either on our Google or directly from customers. Just, you know, the one that really felt good was Marjorie. You know, it's really nice. You have made Prairie Island do a top-notch campground. Thank you. That's somebody who used to come there before, and I'm not knocking anything, but they just have recognized that there's change, and that's you know, that's many people, not just us, but it is there are noticeable improvements. And thank you for your support and for in this. If you have any questions ever, anybody, please feel free to reach out to us. We are.
Does anybody have any questions this evening? Pam?
This is not a question, it's just a comment. Thank you so much for all your hard work and for being such energetic people out there. That's an amazing array of accomplishments and also scheduling. It just makes me tired to think of what you must be going through. Thank you.
Thanks.
Steve?
I'm a user kind of on the periphery of your park there. I'm a birder, so in the springtime, I'll be there. My friend Pam will likely be there as well. So I just wanted you to know there's a real diversity of views, you know that. And so I just appreciate what you've done. And I know you've listened to some of the concerns of people, especially birders, that are concerned that we continue to have that habitat there. So appreciate it very much.
Anybody else? George?
It was good to hear you use the word roundabout. Good report. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, George.
And Jamie, thank you. You guys do a heck of a job out there. Keep up the good work.
Absolutely. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Moving on to item 3.2 is the Anthem Skatepark report.
And we have Zach Craig from Anthem here.
Thank you.
Hi, Zach.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm good. So just a quick clarification. So last time I was here was for the Anthem Skate Park report. This is the outdoor skate park and multi-use community Plaza Plan update. So slightly different, just to separate it. It's a different hat. This is going to be on site next to Anthem, but I am here as a community member, updating you on our work to get a free outdoor community skate plaza and multi-use facility outside of Anthem Skate Shop. Okay, so excuse me, like I said last time I was here, updated you on how popular skateboarding is in Winona and the surrounding area and what that brings to Winona. And now I want to talk about the Plaza Plan. To get started, there's a 3-minute video put together by the City of Skate and the people we've been working with to make our renderings, all of our plans, and that we'll hopefully be working with when we eventually build this plaza. Hopefully everything I've put together in the slide works on a tech level.
Yeah.
It does. Okay.
Zach, Zach, before we get into that,
Mhm.
this will be multi-use, correct?
Correct.
Yep. Bike,
Yeah, and really
skate,
what-
inline.
Oh, yeah, and
Yep.
also when I mentioned multi-use, it's not only skateboard, inline, scooters, BMX, it's also community events, concerts, there's a stage. One of the things that I'll be getting to as well. Yeah, music performance, stage performances, community events. So the idea of a plaza is that it's designed to look like a city plaza, a city park with skatable features.
Yeah.
So like I said in one of our previous meetings, this is the city built a fantastic skate park at Levy Park that is being utilized by the skateboarders of Winona heavily. You did a fantastic job. But this would be a similar site that welcomes skateboarders and then would divert that activity away from Levy Park.
We good, Brad?
Okay.
All right.
At Juxta, we're always interested in how we open space for people to do things in, right? So we weren't interested in just another park where people could come and sort of sit and, you know, eat their lunch and whatever as the sort of primary function of the space. We were really interested in what can this space do that involves multiple kinds of people, different times of day, different days of the week that are sort of making the highest and best use of this space. So we always are also interested in other forms of youth culture, skating culture, biking culture, MC and hip hop culture more broadly.
I think this is a real marker for us because it really was a community design park starting with the user first and really starting with the kids that are going to use the space and having them develop it first, and then combining with the expertise of City of Skate with the help of Mark Lesky. And we really worked with their environmental design team here at Juxtaposition Arts, and then brought in Hunger Skate Parks, which is a fantastic skate park builder out of Indiana. And they came up and finessed the park into something really beautiful and something really skatable.
We've never done a project exactly like this, but we have worked with other arts communities and integrate smaller spots into existing parks or neighborhood parks.
Yeah.
We feel like there should be skate spots in every neighborhood, small spots spread out so many people from different regions can get there easily. You know, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Man, the process to get here where we are now was probably about 2 years. Started with an idea, we had to fundraise for it, we had the kids be involved in the design work. I think what's being built is probably the 5th or 6th iteration of the design. But yeah, there was just a lot of feedback, emailing the city, getting approval for the final construction documents that we came up with, getting feedback from City of Skate regarding skateability, making sure there was enough, seating elements, things like that. So just the full scale design process.
We created this big, 60-inch by 60-inch platform, and with foam core, we created little models of the skate park and all the pieces that were going to go into it. And then we put it on the computers, and we had meetings with City of Skate and went over that over and over and over again until we came to a consensus on what we wanted. And this is it.
I think spaces like these are important to communities because they provide a safe space for kids to try things that are maybe risky and try things that are creative and try things that maybe they wouldn't do outside of this park. It's the first quality skate park in North Minneapolis, and hopefully it opens up the doors to a whole bunch more being built.
All right. Yeah, so that worked well enough, I think, for us to get to get the idea. Yeah, so when that was what kickstarted this whole idea, is seeing that video, and then we got in contact with City of Skate and Hunger Skate Parks, and that kind of set the template and the roadmap for where we are today. And we are now a couple of years into this, our design being put together by the skateboarders of Winona in partnership with Hunger Skate Parks. And that gets us to where we are today. And I really hope this next one works here. It's a fly through, which does need to be clicked, I believe, to get started. So then this is, yeah, a fly through rendering of our plans for the plaza. Hopefully it works. Okay, cool. Yeah, we sent one. It's worth it. There we go. That's the mayor's contribution in the back, the pump track.
Yes. Right.
All right. All right, so then here is, oh, here we go. There is the overview. We'll get into it. It's in 4 phases. The first over here on the left is the plaza, the street section, which would then wrap around the back to a pump track, or known as a snake run section. On the west end of the building is a picnic area, garden area, with also a skate through section, which then takes us to a skatable sculpture garden in the front. And then it would just be a full 360 around the building. When Bart from Hunger Skate Parks came, our original plan was just the plaza on the west, and he got really excited. We brought up some of the suggestions, such as the pump track in the back, and then it grew into this 360, which he said is, when we've looked into it, there's nothing else like this. The public-private partnership and this design that wraps around a building, and it would also bring, within the same parking lot, have the skate park, indoor, outdoor, the aquatic center, and the park all sharing the same parking lot, which we're kind of lovingly calling the West End Recreation Complex. Yeah. Yeah. So then just some other renderings to kind of zoom into it. The plaza section. It's another view. And luckily we're able to keep the 2 large trees on either end of it, which is very unique for a skate park. Skate parks in towns tend to be put in old parking lots, industrial parks. They're usually pushed outside to the outskirts of the city or unused spaces. And what we're trying to do is take the unused space around the West Rec Center and turn it into something that is central, that shows intentionality, is suited for not only the skaters, but the families, and keeps, the old beautiful trees of that area there, which provides shade as well, which skate parks tend to not have those amenities. Which skate parks now are starting to be built in this model in towns, and it's just much more appealing, and it shows that the city cares about the skateboarders. It's the fastest growing sport and activity in the United States, and it doesn't get that attention from the cities. So we're hopefully able to provide that for the skateboarders. When I say skateboarders, I'm a skateboarder, so that's the way I'm viewing it. It is multi-use. I catch myself that I consistently say skateboarders. And then just an overview of the phases, which I'll get into. So yeah, there's the section 1, the street plaza, so 8,250 square feet. Right now, the indoor skate park is 2,700 square feet, so significantly bigger. Largest space, so the highest price tag. Then the section 2, the snake run pump zone, which would be in the back. The west side, that's called the transfer zone and picnic area. And then the skate sculpture zone in the front, only 250 square feet. I'd say one of the most unique sections there at $19,000, which brings it to the total cost, $478,285, 12,700 square feet. When added with the current indoor park, excuse me, would be 15,400 square feet. Yeah, so then I want to talk about that multi-use space. Will not only serve as a space for skateboarding, BMX, scooters, inline skating, it'll also serve as a space for a variety of other uses. The Plaza Plan contains a stage with access to power and the brick wall backdrop. The space would be well suited for things like musical performances, like Midwest Music Fest, Winona's Little Warriors Drumline, Great River Shakespeare Festival, movie screenings. The brick wall offers a great opportunity for projecting film. So like Frozen River Film Festival off-season programming, family arts activities requiring open spaces, things like farmers markets. There'd be flexible space for rent, outdoor recreation space for schools and organizations lacking available recreation space. We've already spoken with Midwest Music Fest, Great River Shakespeare Festival, and the Frozen River Film Festival, and they've all expressed interest in utilizing the space for future events. Additional benefits to the community, it'll be free to the public. We're really happy that we're able to provide the skate park at only $5. We're constantly being told that is, like, people are shocked when they hear $5. Like, oh my gosh, that's it. But for some people, myself included, as a kid, $5 would be a treat. You know, a once a week treat. And for somebody that's into an activity, once a week is just not enough. And this would be free, a daily event. And to quote Lydia Boyson, if you don't build a skate park, if a city doesn't build a skate park, the city becomes the skate park. Because kids want to do the activities that they love on a daily basis. The space will be safe. Anthem Skate Park is on site and can monitor and act as a community hub. The space will be family friendly, with green space and seating. Families can comfortably watch their children use the plaza. The space is designed for all skill levels and will accommodate adaptive equipment. And the plaza will return free recreation to the West End. Yeah. So any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Does anyone have any questions?
Excuse me, I just have one quick question. How does insurance work? If there's a kid that gets hurt, do they sign waivers right now? Are they?
Currently, they sign waivers and are required to wear helmets. Yeah, and we are covered under the city's insurance.
Okay, so if they're outdoor, it's after hours, some kids show up.
If they're outdoors, it would be a city park, right? Okay. So yeah, yes, people aren't required to sign waivers for outdoor free skate parks.
Okay.
Yeah, they would follow the League of Minnesota Skate Parks. There's requirements of sizes and the heights of obstacles to have it be a tier 1 skate park and not require admissions and waivers and things like that.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else? Michelle?
It looks amazing.
Oh, thank you.
I wish I could skate. Yeah, I can't.
Well, we also do lessons and camps.
That's sweet.
Yeah, and we're starting this month the over 30 club. Yeah, because there's been a lot of interest in the older skaters, which I would fall into that group of having a stress-free environment without the high skill level of the kids.
I remember my generation were skaters. We were all over the town, but you know, I'll leave it to them now, the younger ones.
Any other comments or what, George?
Do you have anything for over 65?
There are skaters. We've had skaters in their 70s.
So, all right.
George, it keeps you young.
Yes.
Bring his electric scooter.
New hobby, George. New hobby for you.
Have around.
Good report, Zach. And as always, say hi to your father.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chad, do you have a comment?
Mayor and council, you notice that tonight you don't have any action item before you. Zach has certainly discussed this with the Park Rec Department, much like the Lions Club and the playground down by the band shell. He's presented to you now a few times. The idea being that when he goes out to fundraise, or his group of individuals go out to fundraise, that they have what's considered city support. There's no financial commitment tonight. There's no action item. It gives Zach the opportunity when he goes out to say that Park Rec Department agrees with the concept that he's presented, and that if he's successful, then we'll go through a normal process like we did with the playground down at the band shell for construction, or if there's any city financing that needs to be done. But in essence, what Zach is doing is informing you that he is seeking donations for this project, and of course, we wish him the best of luck.
George, you had a comment?
Chad, that would be similar to the Sobieski Park Pavilion.
Mayor and council, another great example,
No.
much like the Sobieski Park Pavilion as well. So,
Any other questions or comments for Zach? Zach, it's awesome.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is item 3.3. It's the Boathouse Restaurant lease extension.
I'd make a motion to direct the mayor and city clerk to execute the extension.
Second that.
We have a motion from Michelle, a second from Pam. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Under new business, item 5.1 is the renewal of the property and liability insurance for 2022, excluding the workers' comp. And Finance Director Jessica Wojan is here, and I believe Dustin Lano from Winona Agency is available online as well.
Mayor and council, this is the annual renewal for the city property and liability insurance. Included in this renewal is an increase to the cyber insurance with a limit from $250,000 to $500,000. In the past, the cyber insurance was included in the property insurance. This cyber insurance falls under a $25 million shared pool with the League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust. I also have follow-up information for a question regarding volunteer coverage. Volunteers working under the city's direction and control are covered under the volunteer accident coverage. If volunteers would like to be covered under the city's plan, we suggest that future volunteering is organized and overseen by city staff. So.
Go ahead, Pam.
Thank you, Jessica, for coming back with that. When you say we suggest that, there are certain groups that are more or less not autonomous because they coordinate with the city and coordinate with John Howard, who just came in. But when you say we suggest that they be under the direction of, does that mean?
They need to be covered by the insurance. They need to be under the direction of city staff.
Okay.
So they can't just be operating on their own without letting staff know, without having staff giving them direction specifically. Is that correct?
Yes.
They can't just go out with their chainsaw and.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. We'll get back to you.
Yep.
Any other, should we
I'd make,
ask for motion?
I would
Yeah.
make a motion to adopt the attached resolution.
I'll second that.
We have a motion from Michelle, a second from George. Any other points of discussion or questions? I guess I have some, Steve, go ahead. I'll let you go first.
Oh, thank you. If I could get some clarity a bit on our cyber coverage. It's a ever evolving and of course newer form of coverage. I think we all understand, fire insurance, wind insurance, and liability insurance. But what are we really getting for our dollars on the cyber coverage? If either Jessica or Dustin wants to comment on that, help us unpack that just a little bit.
Justin, could you take care of this question, please?
Yeah. Hello. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Good evening. So great question, Steve. It is an evolving coverage, and this year was the first year that the League of Minnesota City Insurance Trust has actually rolled that coverage off from their property form onto a separate form. And reasoning behind that is because it is an evolving product. It's getting more complicated. And but what do you get for your money? Well, I think a couple of things. Number one is first party liability coverages. This is for the city itself. Things such as ransomware protection and all the costs that come with a data breach. And in this case, up to $500,000 in coverage is available there. And then the second one is third-party liability lawsuits. This is when the city is being sued because of potential breach that we have caused that ultimately falls on the lap of another business or personal individual. Another one, fancy coverage that we're hearing more about is identity theft resolution type situations where the individual's data is compromised and we have to restore their identity and provide identity protection ultimately for up to 2 years. And the fines and the regulations that can come along with that would fall under this coverage.
Okay, thank you. That helps. One more follow-up, if I
Please.
could. What's our recent claim history been like? Is it falling within the parameters of what you'd expect, or is it above or below?
As it relates to cyber liability?
No, not cyber. I would hope we don't have a cyber claim. The property and liability.
That was going to be an easy answer. It was zero.
Yeah, none.
Property and liability, claims history has been good.
Okay.
And so just a general overview of what we've experienced about 6 months after today, we're touching base with the League of Minnesota City Insurance Trust to get a good sense of what rates are going to be looking like for the following year. And one of the notes, we were expecting rates to go up, and that's been a common trend across many industries. And we were happy to see where our municipality fell into play compared to others. So claims have been good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dustin. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Item 5.2 is the plat review for the Port Authority second subdivision.
I'd make a motion to adopt the resolution and accept the planning commission item in plat.
We have a motion from Michelle, a second from Pam. Any questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Item 5.3 is the Prairie Restoration Cost Share.
I'd make a motion to direct staff to pursue the cost share agreement.
Second.
We have a motion by Michelle, a second from Pam. We do have John Howard here if anyone has any questions at all.
John, want to tell us anything here?
You want to jump up there, John?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So this is a request for a cost share, a little bit different than a normal grant, but we'd be working with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. They typically work more with private landowners, but we are an eligible entity. So the hope is to go and restore one of the larger prairies out in Bluffside Park. It's relatively remote. I mean, it's not one that gets a whole lot of traffic, so it is actually in pretty good shape. It's about 4 acres, which is pretty good size for our area. Most of the prairie remnants are going to be smaller than that. So this is a kind of interesting case where there's a relatively large prairie in relatively good shape. So to devote some dollars towards it, about a third would be covered by the Fish and Wildlife Service. The other would be coming. The goal would be coming from the trail funds, the restoration dollars that are allocated in that trail fund. So it's not new money we're allocating; it's money that we've already have for restoration, but just putting it towards this project specific area.
Very good. Thank you, John. That is, as far as I know, rattlesnake area up there, correct?
It is indeed.
Does that affect the rattlesnakes at all, their habitat?
This would generally be seen as a positive for rattlesnakes to have this area restored. Definitely, when we're doing the work, there would need to be awareness and timing. So this work would probably be done in the winter or the colder months when the rattlesnakes aren't active, both from a safety of restorers and health of the rattlesnakes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Good idea.
Any other comments, Pam?
Thank you, John. I'm really interested to see this take place. I understand that the area now is really overgrown by buckthorn, and that is bad for rattlesnakes. Right.
Correct. I mean, this prairie in particular is in relatively good shape. I mean, it's probably less than 50% canopy cover. So it's one of the better ones, but like all of our bluffs, buckthorn is quite prevalent.
And when will this project start, do you think?
The best case scenario is we would start at the end of this year. So the Fish and Wildlife Service has kind of a long process to get their funding allocated and out to projects. So at this moment in time, they've just put in the requests. We don't know if they're going to get the funding, but we definitely have the support of for this site from our local representative, private lands biologist. But they do want to know that we are also interested. So the best case is probably starting work, maybe November of this year.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none. Thanks, John. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Item 5.4 is the Paul Brune Historic Revitalization Grant Program.
I make a motion to authorize the mayor to execute the letter of support.
Second.
We have a motion from Michelle, a second from Steve. Any comments or questions?
Is Lucy here? She just wants to touch on this, or Nick
got it. Hi, Nick.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. With this particular grant opportunity, community development is looking to apply for $750,000 to the National Park Service for the sole purpose of the historic rehabilitation of our downtown districts and the buildings. The National Park Service, they usually make their awards in August. Nationwide, they'll make 12 awards. This will be the first year that the city has applied. So staff is pretty excited to throw our hat in the ring on this. If we are awarded for it, then from there, we have a 3-year period to expend the funds. We're looking at significant improvements to buildings. So we're anticipating 8 to 12 buildings out of the 79 eligible within our 2 downtown historic districts.
Any questions for Nick? Thanks, Nick. Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Item 5.5 is the Community Center Public Safety Building Conceptual Design.
I'd make a motion to authorize staff to enter into the agreement with BKV and ISG to provide conceptual layout for a proposed community center and public safety building with allocation of the funding to come from the contingency line item in the 2022 budget.
Second.
We have a motion from Michelle, a second from Steve. Chad, do you have something to say?
Mayor and council, at the time of the agenda, we weren't able to get the proposal from both BKV and ISG to you in the item, but did want to note that the proposal to have ISG and BKV work together is $8,500. And they anticipate that work to be complete in the next 5 to 7 weeks.
George?
Yeah, Chad, as far as combining police and fire, is there any funding that would be available just for the combination of those two? And if we were to do fire and police separately, what funding would be available for those?
Mayor and council, if you look at the public safety building alone, meaning the combination of police and fire, we feel that we would have better opportunities both for federal funding and state funding if that facility was a combined facility, police and fire. And that's primarily through our research with federal dollars that are coming to the state, and work with BKV and talking to our local representatives, primarily because of the training facilities and opportunities that the two together would, if they were housed in one facility, that those regional training opportunities give us a better option for state funding. If the buildings were separated, we certainly would put together a package for a state ask. I don't think that we would probably have as well of an application as other communities that are doing these multi-purpose buildings regarding to public safety. And at that point, I think then we would have to look at local options for those, for the funding for those projects.
Now, the site of the East End Rec is definitely an interest for this building here. People ask, I mean, now, is this actually going to be a given that this is where this building would be?
So, Mayor and Council, the short answer is no, and I think that's why we want this work to be completed. We obviously requested that ISG be involved because they were certainly heavily involved in the design work for the community center and the redevelopment of that block. I think that if we go through this process with ISG and BKV, we will have a better understanding of if all three components can fit in this area. And having that conceptual layout or blocking, as it's commonly referred to, will then give us the option to look at that design and see if community center needs are met and public safety needs are met. And perhaps they don't fit. We don't know at this time. And so certainly a result of this work that they're doing could come back and say that those components just simply don't fit on this site. But not having that answer, I think it's prudent we get that answer before we move forward.
Because I know people are saying if this would not be the site, why would we invest the money? I think you explained that best right now. There will be a community meeting on this project, and I believe it should be held at the East Recreation Center. Does that make sense to everyone? That's where it should be held.
Yep.
And like I say, the reason for having this plan is to show the people that this is what possibly could be there. And it's pretty foolish not, to have a meeting, not have nothing to show to the folks that are there. So thank you.
Go ahead, Chad. We're going to get you.
So Mr. Mayor, I'm just making sure I'm wrapping my mind around this. This proposal would help us understand if this is the appropriate site, if the pieces fit together. We're not really addressing cost at at this point, maybe indirectly, but really to understand, will these pieces fit together? And then this could be something we could present to the community for input, for comment. This isn't really making a decision, but this is deciding, does it work out? Is that right?
Mayor and council, I think you've outlined that correctly. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Pam.
So as we go forward into hiring the consultants, I personally would like to see that that the recreation center as it is doesn't lose square footage. Okay, so in the plan, when we're figuring out how it all fits, let's make sure that the recreation center doesn't get shorted. I'd also very much like to see them dig into their database and find viable examples of how this has worked in other communities. So having the community center, the police and the fire all contiguous. I'm sure it's been done. I'd just like to know how it works.
Very good. Thanks, Pam. Any other comments, questions? George?
Yeah, I just know the one facility that we toured, I believe it was in Fridley. It was fire and police, city hall, park recs, public works. They were all in there. And that was one big complex. So.
Thank you, George. Chad?
Mayor and council, just one final comment, just a clarification. We certainly want to take more public input, have more public engagement. We would like to, in the near future, bring back a proposal from Engage Winona to have Engage Winona certainly have those public input sessions. So agree with Councilman Borzakowski that one of the locations certainly could be the East Rec, but I think we have to engage other members of the community, and we'll bring that process back to you in a more formal request.
Very good. Thank you, Chad.
I was going to say this to council concerns, but it maybe works just here. I did have a few people reach out to me and ask if there could be an online component. There are still some people that are hesitant about meeting in larger groups and they want to be able to voice their thoughts on the project. So I don't know how we could set that up, but if we could make there an availability for emailing in or survey or whatever form you all think takes the best to receive their input, I think that would be helpful if we made that available as well.
Mayor and council, we'll take that into consideration. I think that the best way to do that is to work with Engage Winona and the work they did with the comp plan. If that's a similar format, we can bring back some options where individuals can have a variety of ways that they can provide that input.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other comments, questions, discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Item 7.1 is council concerns.
We'll start with Councilmember Worzakowski.
Thank you, Mayor. This past week, I believe we received an email. There was a letter to, I think, both newspapers from a very professional and respectful woman, Emily Karash Casey. I had the opportunity, while I still serve on Port Authority, but she was the organizer and the front person for Main Street here in Winona and did a very good, excellent job with it. And of course, that's passed on down to Ben Strand. And she just touched a little bit as I get this on the open meeting law here, public comment, not open. I just seen open meeting law. But anyway, I'm going to make some comments here, and I'm making them on behalf of myself, not on the other colleagues that I work with. These are my comments on this. In talking about, we have an option for residents and taxpayers to have an opportunity to directly share their thoughts with council members. I've been on this council for 23 years. Every resident in my ward shares their comments and their concerns with me, and I get back to them with their concerns. With the people that I come across, I meet them at their home. They can come to my home. We may meet in a pub. We may meet in a coffee shop. We may meet at McDonald's, wherever you want. but I have always met with my constituents and have always taken their concerns, and they always felt they could share their concerns with me. That's why we are elected, to have you share your concerns with us. Emails, text messages, phone calls, whatever it may be. Then it goes on that without a public comment period, you're able to distance yourself from the residents impacted by your votes. I have never distanced myself from any resident in my ward or the city of Winona. As I mentioned, I'm accessible. The residents of the fourth ward know I'm accessible, and we talk, and I never, ever go ahead and try to dodge anyone on votes that we make. I just get them up front, we discuss them, and we carry on. But there is no way that at all that I have ever separated myself from the residents that I represent or this city on votes that we have taken. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, George. Councilmember Alexander.
I didn't really have anything tonight, but I'm just gonna share something with about George and the rest of this council. Broadway was a 6-year project. For those of us that were here those full 6 years, I assure you that we heard from everyone that had something to say. I don't think in my 12 years or 13 years has a project been brought before council and the public more times to be voted on than Broadway. And I understand people were unhappy with the vote, but what I heard, and I think what George heard, was unmitigated disinterest in that project. And so, and I'm also just going to defend George here on this public comment thing. He did 8 months ago ask not only this council, the city manager and mayor, to bring this to a pre-council so it could be discussed, and it never happened. I don't think any of us have a problem with public comment. In fact, I'm going to guess that's how most of us base our votes, is on what we hear from the community. So just to defend George a little bit there, there's not a man I've worked with that is more open to his community. I've met him for coffee, and I can tell you that no one is ever afraid to interrupt our conversation, to share a thought or concern they have about the city, the fourth ward, or any other project going in and around the community. And I think the longer you're on council, the more recognized you are, the more often that happens. It becomes a challenge to go to the grocery store. And it becomes a challenge to go to the park, not because we don't want to hear from people, but because they feel comfortable when they know you're going to listen, come and talk to you. And I know George, and I can say for most of the council that I've worked with, that we are those people. So in fact, I think we're unbelievably available by phone, email, personal contact. There are multiple options for public hearings. And I suspect we will again eventually touch on this topic of allowing for public comment at the front of the meetings, but a lot has happened in the last 8 months, and I think it just escaped the importance and foreground that maybe even I think the mayor originally had brought it up when he was elected. So for those of you looking for that, I believe it will come back around. It's just we've been in a bit of transition.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Councilmember Ida.
Well, I didn't really have anything to say tonight, but I too am interested in hearing, let's have a pre-council meeting or whatever it takes to move this along for the public response time.
Thank you, Pam.
That's all.
Councilmember Young. Nothing tonight. Councilmember Rapinski.
Mayor, just want to reiterate, of course, what George said, but folks out there, feel free to give me a call anytime if you have an issue with something. I know I've received hundreds of phone calls, and I've taken every one of those calls. So folks, feel free to give me a call. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Aaron.
And the last item on the agenda is the consent, the approval of the minutes from January 18th.
Move approval of those minutes.
Second.
We have a motion from Michelle, a second from George. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
The time being 7:54 and there being no further business to come before this council this evening, I move we adjourn.
I will second that.
Motion from Michelle, second from George. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.